Okay. Let's post that and get that pinned. So we are going to bring in the lovely Akila. So Akila's going to be joining us. I've finished giving my body some nourishment. So I'm quite excited, enthusiastic. So today this is our launch of our residential collection service in the Bronx. We are super excited to offer this to people. Traditionally, we've done commercial, and now we're focusing on residential just because we want to keep our food scraps out of the landfill. And if this is one of the ways that we can do it, then we are going to do it this way. I mean, I haven't taken the time to talk about these are our pricing plans and structures and all that kind of stuff. I've just been kind of getting into the nitty gritty of compost because, these conversations are fun. So yeah, I'm going to bring in, let me see if there's a way I can bring in Akila. Who is going to be joining us. There she is. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about offering this service. I'm excited about having these conversations, and I'm really enthusiastic about continuing the work, that has been for so many years. Hi. So welcome. Akila is also one of the new people that I have never met, spoken to, done anything before ever in life. There are a couple of people that have come into this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
You are so welcome. Greetings. Thank you for having me on your platform. I'm super excited to talk about everything that we're going to discuss today. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. So, I'll let Akila talk more about her business. But let me just tell you, I found Akila because I was like, one of the things we talk about in compost is that, I've said it in many of the other lives, is that it's very homogenous, meaning that it just looks one way. You see a lot of male, white, dominated within the industry. And I think that, again, compost is a commodification of a traditional system that we've already understood to be natural. So maybe that's why we don't see us there, is because we do the actual work and we align with our ancestors and with indigenous practices. And maybe we don't think about it in this commercial way and in this capitalist way. However, in most spaces that have influence over what happens to our systems, we need to be represented. And so, I found Akila because I was like, man, I have all these people on this panel. I was just like, where are the Black people composting? And so I was like, Black girls compost. And so I went to the hashtag. There was these three. It was literally three. Maybe it was only two, and I added the third one. But it was two or three. I think one of the other ones was somebody reposting yours. But there was nobody else for Black Girls Compost. And I was like, oh my God, now I have another movement that is great to start. So when I tell you this day, it has been full of great new ideas and directions to go in, not only with the business, but with this conversation around compost and diverting food waste. But I know definitely I saw, and then I got to your page and I was like, oh my God, I saw the video of the composting, but then I saw all of the other work that you did. I was like, okay, this is it. So let's just kind of jump right into it. If you could just tell us your name, a little bit about your business and just what you focus on, just a little bit about you.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Brittany Akila Thomas, Akila for short. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach, and what I do is I specialize in holistic healing of the body using natural modalities. So things connecting to herbalism, plant-based nutrition, all of those things, just keeping it natural and also focusing on the emotional and psychological aspects of wellness. So that's more of who I am and what I do. The area that I focus on the most is plant-based nutrition. So I am a fanatic when it comes to cooking and teaching people how to easily transition over to plant-based diets, because there's a stigma, especially in Black communities, that we don't like to eat healthy and that all we want to eat is pig feet and, mac and cheese and all these other things. And so I tackle head on a lot of those things to try to really address it in our communities and introduce them to vegan food and show them like, hey, vegan food can be just as good as the standard stuff that you're used to, but it's going to help you feel better. It's going to help you improve your health. And quite frankly, I feel like it's the future. Like, I feel like the future is plant-based. And so I'm kind of like, I feel like it's my duty and my purpose in life to kind of lead an aspect of that journey, to bring people back to nature and to just show them that this is actually where we come from. Like indigenous people, Black people, this is what we did. This is our element, and we need to get back to that. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do, and my business. My business is called Awakening Aquila. So that is my current platform that I use to, I originally started it actually several years ago, and it started out as just a Instagram and YouTube channel where I showcased my vegan journey, as well as showcased my journey going into spiritual growth and development, because going vegan kind of really helped me jumpstart other aspects of my personal growth. And now I'm kind of venturing off and I'm starting something new right now. And I haven't really released a lot of information yet, so I'm going to keep a little bit of it under wraps. But the big part of this movement is going to be really surrounded around plant-based nutrition. So I'm super excited about, the upcoming weeks, and you guys stay tuned for some of the new things that I have rolling out. But yeah, I'm just super excited.
Yay! So I know for me, and it's, I love somebody in the comments that the future is definitely plant-based, which I also agree.
Yes,
One of the things for me is that I've been like, I am what you might call a flexitarian, okay? I am quite flexible in what I consume. I've gone through detoxes and eaten, and, I've gone through so many different varying levels of it. And I think, one of the things for me is that I've stated, like, first of all, I stopped eating red meat when I was like 14 because I had lots. I've cut them off at this point, but I had lots. At 14, I was like, no red meat, no pork. So that was like nothing that was really a part of my diet anyway. Then randomly, I think before I had my daughter, who's 5 now, I like cut out chicken for a year. Like, let me just see if I can do it. And so I stopped doing that. And I went back to it when I got pregnant with her. I was like, I just want some boneless buffalo wings, right? And so that's what, but again, you can use a different medium, and with the same flavoring, same seasoning, you can just use something else, right? And so I've done the detox, done like the surviving vegan detox. I've, followed the plans, all this other kind of stuff. My stuff has always been the same issue. And maybe this is because, I don't know, like maybe I am, what's the word? I am too quick to give up. I need my food to taste tasty. And what I mean by that is that, like, I need it to be like smacking and slapping, baby. And like, I think that I have been a little unsuccessful, and so there are moments where it's like, oh, this is good, this works. Other moments it's like, that one was a definite like fail, right? And I think that I need to have a certain level of discipline and sticking with it, and just to maintain it. I think also feeding a toddler can get discouraging, because she is 5 and she's very finicky about what she eats, and so trying to bring her certain things, like I made some vegan meatloaf. It was actually really good to me, but I think I made it a little too spicy for her, so she wasn't here for it. And she's like, some things she's like totally here for, and other things she's like, nah. So I think for me, one of the reasons why I've gone back and forth so much is because I haven't felt confident, right, about preparing these meals in such a way where I'm like, good, right? And let's be clear, when I eat like that, I feel better. I notice the difference in my moods. I recognize the difference in how I'm balancing myself. Also, I fill up my compost bucket with goodness, and my bucket smells great. There are all these beautiful things that come, as a result of having a plant-based diet. And I've definitely always been a supporter of it. I have just also found my difficulty in sticking with it. And so it's so funny because when I came across your services, and mind you, y'all, like, Aquila's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, I am bringing people from all over the United States today to this conversation. Maybe not all over. We kind of staying on the Eastern Seaboard. I don't think we've like ventured off into like the Midwest, West. We're just keeping it on the East for today. But it is to say that, I when I went to your page and I actually went to your website and saw the different things and services that you offered, I was like, I think I might have to hit her up. Like, I think we might have to have a conversation or two after we get on this live. But that is so dope that you do that and offer that. And so, I know like time constraints. I'm kind of good with that for now. So one of the things I do want to ask before I kind of jump into the next question is, what kicked off your plant-based journey? And one of the things that I really want to talk about is like eating holistically and its connection to compost. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but I'm curious, like what catapulted your journey in eating plant-based?
So my plant-based journey, well, really my journey with food started 10 years ago. So I was probably a sophomore in college at the time. Sorry, I am sweating like crazy because I decided to sit right directly in the sunlight. It is baking me,
I
baby.
mean, it's
But
glowing, baby. It's bouncing off the skin. It's glowing. It looks
right,
great.
we
It
need
looks
that
good.
vitamin D. We
You're
need the
still giving
sunlight.
effect, so it's no worries.
So I'm gonna just bear with it. But my journey started when I was a sophomore in college. I actually had a slew of different health challenges that I was dealing with. I was dealing with chronic constipation to the point where I was only having one bowel movement a day. I'm sorry, not a day, a week, a week.
Oh,
Let me
wow.
rephrase that. Once a week. So your girl was completely and totally dependent on laxatives. I was having constant vaginal issues. So as a woman, when the vagina is unhappy, everything is unhappy. So,
Back, back.
I will spare you guys all the details on that, but just know that I had an angry vagina, and that really kind of put a damper on everything that was going on in my life. I was suffering from constant bloating, gassiness. I mean, you name it, I was dealing with it. And so after not really getting results from my doctors and all they really wanted to do was just give me medicines,
Yeah.
I eventually said, you know what, ditch the doctors. Well, I'm going to do this myself. Like, if they can't figure it out, let me take a jab at it. Like I'm sure that I could do a little bit better than them. And so I just was studying and researching so much. And I just said, look, I don't know which one of these things are going to help me, but I'm going to try all of them. So I changed my diet drastically. I did a full body detox. I was doing a liver cleanse. I mean, heavy metal detox, you name it. I went up and bought like all kinds of stuff and I changed. And in a matter of 2 months, I completely reversed all of those things that I was dealing with.
Wow.
And when I saw the power in that, that was like the gateway that really opened me up to just knowing how powerful changing your diet and also detoxing your body can be. And from that moment forward, I just continued to study, I continued to research, and eventually along the journey, veganism came up because I knew, like, okay, at some point, you got to stop eating meat. You got to stop eating dairy. So it was like the next logical step in my progression. And then that's when I finally just decided one day, like, I'm going to go vegan. And I did it cold turkey. I didn't prepare. And I actually don't recommend this to people. And this is also what inspired me to start a program to help people learn how to easily go plant-based, because when I did it 5 years ago, I did it all completely wrong. I was extreme. I didn't prepare and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so I struggled, for the first several months of my journey, but I learned so much. And all of those struggles really helped me to see, like, if I'm doing this, then I'm pretty sure that every other person out there is struggling with these things as well. And so I kind of like reverse engineered is what I want to say. I reverse engineered all my struggles and turned it into a program. And now I teach people the exact strategies that are going to help them easily go ahead and make that switch without having to worry about the pitfalls that I got stuck in. So
Nice.
that's pretty much how I got here with my plant-based journey. And it's been 5 years now. I actually just had my 5-year anniversary 2 days ago.
Yay! Congrats!
Yay.
Awesome. I know it's so interesting because like I had stopped with meat on my birthday last year, and then like my grandmother had got sick later on in the year, so then I was just like, I'm hungry. Like I was so back and forth between like the hospital and stuff. And so basically I just was like, all right, I'm gonna just eat. So it's always exciting to be able to celebrate those milestones and to keep that consistency. And so yeah, you definitely are inspiring, and I will definitely be hitting you up for that because it's important to have somebody to walk through with it who has lived your experiences and can offer you that kind of support, that coaching. You know what I mean? Like it's like an accountability partner, like you need somebody who's there who can help to support it and can help usher you into a new way. So the next question that I have for you, this is really based on how I even came to your page, how I found you. So Akila, y'all, has little worms in her house, and at some point, maybe towards the end, she'll share them with us. But I wanted to ask you why you, and this is what's so great, y'all. We have so many different people on this platform today talking about so many different variations of composting, and vermicompost is another way to compost. It's a way to compost indoors. And so that's how I found Akila. She had a nice indoor worm bin. It was nice and sexy. And she was like, her worms get like 5-star treatment. The stuff was like all cut up. It was nice. It was sectioned off. Like, her worms are getting it. Okay, let me tell you something. So I might have to sponsor like a condo bin or something like that for you so that they can have like live in their condo home, you know, while they have their condo food and treatment. So my question is, why do you compost indoors? And when was the first time you remember being introduced to compost?
Okay, so when was the first time I was introduced to compost? I've known about compost for years now, but I've never ever thought that it was something that I would particularly get into, because I always thought that people who compost have gardens and they get into farming and stuff, and that's only when people would need to compost. So for me, I wasn't gardening, I wasn't growing anything, so I was like, I don't need to compost. So I was just throwing away all of my scraps. And then eventually I started following this woman on Instagram, and she's also here locally in Cincinnati. Her name is Nadia. I'm going to shout her out, Urban Farm Sister. She is a goddess when it comes to all things based with urban farming. She's an entomologist as well, and a disease tracker and investigator. So she just like has a world of knowledge about different things. And I took a class from her about growing food, and she talked about composting. And I put it in my head like, okay, and this was probably like a year and a half ago, but she told us and laid it all out about how to do it, why it would be advantageous for us. And I'm like, okay, I'm not quite ready yet, but I'm gonna just hold on to that knowledge. Now, fast forward to when I decided, you know, I want to start my own garden. Like, it is time that I start growing my own food, because with all the crap that's going on in this world today, I need to, you know, start moving forward with being more self-sufficient. So I made a pledge to myself to grow every single thing that I love to eat. So I know you guys can't see it all right now, but y'all see all of my plant babies over here.
Nice.
And so yeah, I decided to start my patio garden. And once I decided to start my patio garden, it dawned on me like, okay, plants need food. So what am I going to feed them? Because I don't want to give them fertilizers from the store, because they're filled with a lot of nasty stuff sometimes. And I'm like, I don't want to eat that. I want it to be as pure and as natural as possible. And I know a part of my purpose is to also teach this to people. So the ancestors are like, look, you got to learn how to do it from scratch, just like you learned how to do everything else. Like, nobody taught me how to go vegan. I had to learn through trial and error. So I had to learn how to do this too. So I was like, all right. I was on YouTube, girl, every goddamn day, watching videos, trying to figure out what to put in this bin, what kind of worms to get, like all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. And I finally was like, you know what? There's not enough videos that are going to prepare me. Like, I just got to do it and observe and learn from there. And that's what made me start.
Nice, 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 nice. That's actually super dope. And y'all can actually check out the video on Akila's page to see how she feeds her worms. So yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you, since that kind of was what sparked you in actually getting started, what did you learn? Because you've been doing it for a couple of months now, right?
Yeah, I want to say it may be close to 2 months now since
Two
I
months.
started
Okay.
my worm bin.
Okay.
The,
So like,
the,
what
the,
is? Yeah.
oh, go
What you
ahead.
say?
I was going to say the biggest thing that I have learned thus far is I needed to move it out of my house. And that's the first thing I learned. Let
Say
me start
more.
there. So the worms were doing fine in my house, but what I learned is that mites, these little bitty tiny mites, developed in my bin because I was overfeeding the worms, and so they weren't eating the food fast enough. And I just don't even know how or where these things came from. But next thing you know, one day I opened up my bin, and I just seen all of these, like, I mean, it was thousands of them, and they were small. So I'm like, oh my God, I know some of these are probably crawling around on my carpet right now. Like, this has got to get up out of my house like now. So even though I saw a lot of stuff that says you shouldn't put your worms outside, I was like, look, we ain't got no choice because they can't stay in here. So I've actually transferred my worms outside, and they're actually back here. They're right here. And
Okay.
I'll show you my worm babies in a little
I mean, they're
while.
in the shade, so that's helpful.
Yeah. So I made sure to put them in the shade as best as I could. And they've been actually thriving out here. So I haven't had a whole lot of issues. Besides some of them, like I drilled holes in the bottom of my bin for drainage. Some of them escape and they get out, and they crawl out and they get dried up because of the sun. So I am
They're gonna
actually
get
in the
dried up
process.
anyway.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the process of I'm gonna have to dump the bin and put some screening down so that it covers up the holes so that they don't escape because I paid for these worms and I ain't got time for them to be escaping and then be drying up, because they being hard headed and they want to explore. So we go kill that today. We're gonna address that soon and then I don't want them dying. Like,
Yeah,
this is your habitat. This is your home. I feed you. I keep you comfy. And a lot of people talk about worms wanting to escape the bin, but I haven't experienced any issues with my worms trying to escape. But it's natural for them to want to go through holes and see what's out there. And it's not a whole lot of them, but it's enough for me to say,
enough.
okay, this keeps happening consistently. I'm going to be
Yeah,
losing a whole lot of them. So
yeah.
I'm going to be on top of that.
Same. That's exactly what happened. So when I did worm bins back in the day before I had my daughter, it was a thing for like me and my niece, and it was like a very fun thing. But I would have renegade worms, and they would be like randomly, and not a lot of them, the same that you experienced, and maybe like one or two, but it would still be like, oh, there's a dried up dead worm like sitting here next to the bin, and it's like, oh no. So the screening
Right.
is actually a good idea. I never even really thought about that because they need the holes to breathe, but that's actually a
Hmm.
really smart idea. And yes, to your mite problem, I totally understand it when you overseed. And that's actually my next question about what do you actually feed it, right? So the thing what's so interesting about worm bins, right? Like whether it's a worm, I mean, so there's a difference, right? There's a difference between an indoor worm bin and an outdoor worm bin. An outdoor worm bin is still very intentional, right? Like we know automatically worms do come to the compost. However, an outdoor worm bin is basically indoor, just outdoor, right? It's the
Yes.
same type of worms. And so, since your system was indoors, what is it that you're feeding it? Because that's one thing that we always talk about too, is like to be mindful of what you. I'm like, oh, one of your worms got out.
Girl, I thought it was a bug, but it was just some sweat. Sorry. I
um,
panicked for a slight second.
No worries, no worries. So, what are you feeding it? Because I know like brassicas are always really hard to break down in the bin as well. Like there are things that are like more advisable. Citrus, like there are certain things that are more advisable to feed your indoor worms. So I'm curious what you feed yours.
So I learned through trial and error that they really don't like broccoli.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or at least it took them a very long time to break up some broccoli that I gave them. I had threw carrots in there before. The carrots were still in there after a couple of weeks. So I'm like, okay, maybe they don't like this. They love watermelon. And I eat watermelon like it's going out of business. So I always have watermelon for them. I just recently fed them, I want to say, was this last week or earlier this week? I can't even remember. But I fed them a peach. And they had kiwis before. So typically I give them my fruit scrappings and maybe some veggies. But like I said, I've learned that certain things that it just takes them longer to eat. And all of that food that you've seen me freeze up for them, I have yet to actually give them that food yet because I produce so much that I'm literally like, I always have fresh stuff to give them. So I haven't even had to unthaw the stuff that I froze for them. So I'm actually feeling like I need another bin or I
Mm-hmm.
need to donate some of my food scraps to someone else who's doing composting because I still end up throwing away a ton of stuff because I'm like, they just can't eat all of this.
Eat it fast enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very, very true. So I kind of want to shift a little bit into your business and like how compost is connected to it, if at all, if you can draw any connections.
So I would say at this moment, composting hasn't quite connected to my business in such that it is something that I'm telling people like, in order to go plant-based, you have to do this. But I think it is giving people insight to see that plant-based is so much more than just a diet. It's a lifestyle. So being plant-based for me means not only eating from the earth, but now I'm growing food and I'm also taking food and giving it back to earth and creating actual earth with it and
Yeah.
recycling it to feed the plants. And it's like, you know, the cycle. Like I'm
Yep.
literally being a part of that cycle where we are able to use all of the things in nature to create our abundance. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of like the messaging of how it connects to the business at this point. But I do also want to mention that vermicomposting, which is the act of using special composting worms to break down food and paper scraps and things like that, because I also do give them paper scraps too.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but the act of doing that itself is a business. Like people could totally just create a whole business off of growing worms and selling them, or selling the worm castings that get created from them breaking down the food. And it's actually a very lucrative business. And I learned that from the lady that I was telling you about, the urban farm sister. Her name is Nadia. She was like, you know, people always think that when you say go into the farming or agricultural business, that it always has to surround farming, but it really can be so much more than that. Like you could literally sell compost and make thousands of dollars a month just selling compost, or you can sell worms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, again, having this conversation, I'm like, all right, what kind of worm farm are we gonna do at the garden now? We got the space there. I was like, come on with it now. All of these
yeah.
ideas are like just building and building and building. So my next question is, what do you believe the role of holistic wellness plays in composting?
So for me, kind of just like what I explained, it's the whole sustainability of
Hmm.
using what you get from nature and giving it back to nature versus stopping that cycle. Because at the end of the day, that's the natural process of life. When something is created or born from nature, eventually there's a time where it must die. And where does it return? It returns back to nature. And then those same elements and components of that dead content is used to rebirth and create something else. So it's always a constant cycle of recycling and sustainability. So I feel like as far as holistic health and wellness is concerned, it is teaching us a natural way to deal with our trash and to feed, you know, the things in nature. Like they want this stuff. Why
Yeah.
throw it in a dump where, you know, it's not being utilized for our abundance? Like I'd rather be able to say, you know what, I got some grade A worm castings, which is the most healthiest nutritional food that you could give your plants, and you have it in your backyard. Like I created this. Well, I didn't create it, but I created the environment for the
You
worms to create
assisted, you
this.
created the environment, yes.
I created the environment for them to do this, and this is how they repay me. They give my plants nutrients, and the plants then produce food for me. And then when
Mhm.
I eat food, if I don't need all of it, I give it back to the earth and let it reproduce itself. Like that is how it's supposed to be done. And
Yeah.
I feel like we can go deeper into this as far as like, you know, going off grid and having a composting toilet and all of these different things. Like it all ties back into sustainability and giving back to nature.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because one of the things for me when I think about holistic wellness, I think about our connection to the environment. And so this idea of you saying like, this is what she gives me back, you know what I mean, as a result of me giving to her. And that's one of the things I always talk about. I have this Food Waste Friday series that I do every week. And one of the things that I always talk about is part of the way that we sustain ourselves as humans is sustaining the environment around us. And so if we begin to engage in the sort of practices that allows us to have a symbiotic relationship with this planet, not one that is predicated on extraction, right? I'm not meant to just take from you. You're not meant to just give to me, but we're meant to give to each other. And it is through that gift of giving, right? It is through that sharing of myself that you bless me with something back. And so, you know, you saying that's what it makes me think about. And when I think of this holistic, you know, you take the root of the word whole, and then it makes me think about circle. And so, you know, um basically when we think about circles and cycles, like that's when I think about compost, that's it's healing for me in that way. We get to connect to the land. The earth speaks to us in many different ways. You know, we are connected through the vibrations of it. And if we take the time just to be still enough and listen, we will be able to receive and download so many different messages from the universe, you know, through it. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you offering that and bringing that up, because it just reminds me of like even more why I do this work. And I didn't ask this question, but I'll ask it now since somebody in the chat asked the type of food that you're growing. I know she mentioned, I think she showed us like some tomatoes, but yeah, what are some of the things that you're growing?
Oh, the funny thing is, I'm a first time grower. So this is
Yeah,
my first time ever putting my hand in growing anything. I've never thought that I had a green thumb. Never. I mean, I've always talked about wanting to have a garden, but I was so disconnected, and I was just like, I'm okay right now. But this whole coronavirus stuff just really kind of made it feel more urgent. And the funny thing is, someone actually came and prophesized over me a couple months ago, and she told me that I come from a very long line of agricultural people, and that it was in my
chill.
purpose um, to get people back to nature and to teach them how to cultivate the land and all of these different things. And I'm like, me? Like, you talking about me? Because I ain't got a not near green thumb on me. And so after, taking home that message, and it set with me because it really moved me. Then it was almost like clockwork. This little light went off, and the next thing you know, I was like, I'm going to go get seeds. Like right now, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, but that's how we're gonna figure it out. And I'm gonna be honest. The first set of seeds I planted, I killed everything. I didn't know what I was doing. My brother told me that I could use topsoil to grow all of my food, and the topsoil was way too dense. They couldn't break through, and they kind of stunted their growth. So I had to start over, but I learned. And so through that, I was able to start a whole bunch of stuff. And so right now, like what you guys see behind me, this is actually my pepper plant. And I don't know if you guys can hear, it's a little dirty, but I got some peppers on this bad boy. So that's my pepper plant. This right here next to it is a honeydew. This sitting on this table back here. Actually, I'm gonna just go ahead and just take the camera around. Let me swap it around. Let me give y'all. So right here, this is okra.
Nice.
This is red Malabar spinach. This right here is some bok choy. It's struggling, but we're gonna see how it does. It didn't like being transplanted, so it's still recovering.
Mm-hmm.
This is my blackberry bush. No berries yet, but it's getting nice and big. This is some Egyptian spinach. This is a piece of chocolate mint that I just literally transplanted in here because it's such an invasive plant, and it was trying to spread everywhere. So I was like, let me just start a little piece and give it to somebody. This is, what's this? What are you? This is lemon cucumber. So this one's doing nice. This is green beans. This is some struggling dandelion that I need to repot. This is my microgreens that ain't micro no more. So I need to go ahead and harvest those. This baby right here is regular cucumber, which has gotten pretty big. These are red onions, and I have these in a 7-pound bag with like a flap on the front so I can easily harvest. This is just an herb that I've been playing around with. This is called oxalis. This is garlic chive. I got my lettuce, more lettuce over here. Not doing that great, that lettuce. Just started some more Malabar spinach. So this is green and red variety. This is Crenshaw melon, I want to say. Yeah, this is my Crenshaw melon. This is my acorn squash. This is acorn squash. This is my zucchini plant. Back here I got some plantain leaf, which is another medicinal herb that is one of my favorites. I took a piece and transplanted it so that I could have my own. This is cantaloupe. Looks like it grew in the past few hours, literally. This is my greens box, so I got a ton of Swiss chard, some kale, and this is lamb quarter coming up, which is another type of leafy green. This is my butternut squash. And then this one right here, which is taking a long time to get some growth on it, but this is my yellow crookneck squash. So this is everything that I'm growing right now on my patio. And then I do have a few more that I just recently started. This is some spicy basil. I got some, what are these? Goji berries. And then I just had to restart some more Egyptian spinach because I'm actually going to donate those to a community garden here. So I just started those. And then these are my herbs. I got basil, rosemary, thyme, chocolate mint, oregano, and my cilantro decided to die on me, so it went to seed, and these are all of the seeds, so I have to restart my cilantro.
Are you going to save them?
Yeah, I'm going to save these seeds, and I'm going to restart some cilantro because I feel like it's important for me to have my own cilantro. I love cilantro. I use it all the
You
time.
need both. Oh my God. I honestly, this is like the start of a new budding because like, as you were speaking, I think and thank you for like showing us that and sharing that with you because like with us, seeing it is so inspiring. I know like the climates are different in, Ohio versus here in New York, but just seeing it and so many and to know that you just started and, the trial and error and a lot of the stuff that we do is really trial and error, but like to see it like that, man, that was amazing. That was like truly, truly amazing. And one of the things that I always say is the same thing. Like, I feel that one of my purpose, like here in life, is to bring people back to the land dancing, So it was really, really, I connected to what you were saying and what it is that you were offering. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm telling y'all, if y'all haven't gone to look at Akila's page yet, because y'all still here, it's noon, it's fresh, when you get up off this live, go have fun over there. Go check out her website. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Let us figure out how to get plant-based. And I know she's like bugs.
I know
so I had two final questions. One, and I know your work is not really centered so much around composting. However, you do compost indoors. Do you have a overall vision for what you want to see happen with composting in Cincinnati?
So in Cincinnati, there are a few places that I have actually taken classes at just to get better with composting. So I took a class a couple weeks ago. It was a free workshop, and it taught you actually how to create your own indoor worm bin. So I had already had my bin and stuff ready. I already had my worms, but like I said, I was like stockpiling information because I wanted to make sure that I did it properly. I would love to be able to partner with them at some point. At this moment, I'm not 100% sure that I want to champion a composting movement, but I am definitely showing it in my journey and educating people about it. And who knows, at some point, maybe it does become an aspect of what I do because it is heavily connected to plant-based nutrition. And like I said, I am advocating for people to get back to nature and to learn how to start growing their own food. And if we have to grow our food, we also have to feed the plants that produce the food. So we have to start getting back into composting. So I'm always going to tell people, you need to do both of them. Like, don't depend on Walmart, don't depend on Home Depot or Lowe's to be able to supply you with what you need to grow your food. Like, nature has covered already. So learn how to start using, leaves and branches and paper and your food scraps to break that down into a nutrient-rich food that you can feed to your plants.
Yeah. They feed us, we feed them, that reciprocity. What was the name of the organization that you took the class with?
You know what?
Shoot me later.
I can't remember. I will share it with you. I'll go into my email and look because I'm gonna be honest, I can't even remember.
No worries, no worries. And my final question before we go is, when you think of the word compost, what is the first word that comes to mind?
I just think of richness. That's what I think about. And it's funny that they call worm castings black gold. I just think about richness because the funny thing is I made a post about this on my social media page on Facebook that anything dark, black of hue, that is actually very rich. It is very full of creative energy. It is nutrient dense. It is good. And all of our lives, we've been taught that black is bad, black is evil, but actually black is the primordial creative force. We are grown in a womb in complete darkness. You plant seeds in darkness, and it takes them to be in that darkness in order to sprout and to grow into something. I mean, there's so many different examples. When you close your eyes and meditate to calm yourself, what do you see? Darkness. So that is what I think about when I think of composting and just the color and the vast richness of it. That is it. It's richness. I see creation. I just see just the energy of creativity.
Yeah, yeah. Woo! Y'all, my heart is just like burst open. Akilah, thank you so much for joining us today. I will definitely be in touch. Stay in touch. We'll stay connected as we build out Black Girls Compost, because I mean, you know, plant-based nutrition and composting are like hand in hand. So you don't gotta do it. You gotta champion it. I'm gonna come out to Cincinnati. We're gonna bring Greenfeen out to Cincinnati and work with folks out there and make it a large thing, larger than life. But thank you for joining us, y'all. I'll be back in 8 minutes. Whoever's else next up on this thing, I'm like, oh my God.
Guys, the compost bin.
Oh, show us this. Yeah, show us your worms, please. I do, yeah.
Let me put my gloves on because
I know last time you did it, you was like, I don't feel like opening this bin right now. I was like, well, maybe she'll open it for us.
I'm going to be honest. I am terrified of worms. Like,
really?
So the whole thought of starting a worm bin was so foreign to me, but
wow.
I was like, so here's my worm bin right now.
Look at that.
You can't see any of the worms because they're currently up underneath. But I'm going to scoop through here because, like I said, I just fed them not too long ago. And if you guys can see, this is a piece of watermelon that they have damn near completely decimated. And, like, look at that. Like, it's just falling apart as I pick it up. Now, if I dig a little more, I'm trying to show you guys some of the worms. Okay, so there they are. Some of them.
Yes.
So they were eating on that watermelon. There's also a few pieces of kiwi left. Like, this is the skin of a kiwi. I'm going to put that back over there so they can finish that. I recently fed over here, and I gave them a peach. So I can see some mites over here on this peach. It looks disgusting, honestly. But look at the worms. They're tearing it up.
Yes. The wigglers.
So I'm actually using red wigglers. That is the actual worm that you want to use for your composting. Like I said, the best advice is if you do start a worm bin, make sure you keep it moist. Drill some holes in the bottom of the bin so that moisture can drip down. But I've learned that you actually should put some screening over the holes so that the worms don't escape through the holes, because I'm sure if I lift this box up, it's probably a few of them that escape. Do not lay your fruits and veggies and other scrappings just on the soil. Bury them into the soil to avoid smell and to also stop, other rodents and stuff like that from getting to the food, because it's meant for your worms. And just keep an eye on them. Like, I'm probably actually going to give this bin a little bit of water, and then I also add something called dolomite limestone powder, which is a natural way to alkalinize the soil, because it helps to prevent bacteria growth and other things from proliferating in the bin.
Nice. So we're gonna talk more about it. I'm like, I have never fed bokashi to the worms, but I would be curious to see how it would be affected in the bin. But that is so awesome. I love seeing the worms. I love seeing the food. You use soil as sometimes we just use other bedding. I use
peat moss. I use peat moss as my bedding. I think next time when I harvest this bin, I will probably use just more newspaper, because what I've noticed is that it's hard to differentiate between the soil you put in here and the actual worm castings. So that's probably why
it all kind of just works together.
It all kind of just looks the same. But worm castings do look slightly different. Like, they're a lot more, they just look a bit different. So, I'm gonna I don't know exactly when.
Moisture, but the soil that you have in there probably would be happy to have it as well. So I wouldn't be surprised that they would mix together. But Akilah, thank you so much. This was super, super exciting. And I look forward to staying connected, and we'll talk more in the future.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share a little bit about what I do and how I incorporate composting and holistic living into my lifestyle and promote it to others. So continue to do the work that you do. It is needed. We need more people like you in our community, especially people who look like us. So
Yeah,
thank you.
definitely. Thanks so much. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
Okay. All right, y'all. I'm going to get off this for like 4 minutes and then I'll be back in 4 minutes because, it went a little over. It was a great conversation. We were all here together, but we have Christina from Nurture BK Compost coming up next. So I'm going to get a little bit more bites of some food and I'll be back. Bye. Black Girls Compost. Black Girls Compost. That's it, though. Really.